Homebrew Wednesday. Main Brew Guy again. This video is going to cover a couple of topics. One is finishing out the yeast washing process and doing a starter. That way we can follow that whole process through from my previous video to now. Also, there's a little bit of the Evil Twin Brew day. Gorgeous day here today. And a little project that I did to the brew stand that the jury's still out whether or not it worked out. So stay tuned, enjoy the video. Happy Homebrew Wednesday.
Okay, we're getting ready to make our starter for the yeast that I had washed out, and you can see how that settles out. So I'm just going to pour that liquid off, be left with the yeast, and I won't even use all of that yeast. I'll probably just kind of pour off a little bit of the surface of that yeast, try to grab the middle and let the bottom stay behind. I only have a 1 liter beaker. A lot of people use 2 liter beakers. So it's basically 1 liter of fluid and 3/4 cup of DME. That's a rough estimate. If you have a scale, you'll want to measure it out. It'd be 1 gram. However, I can't put that much in there because if I do, it'll ferment over the top. So I do about 800, and I scale back my DME accordingly. All right. So I have my DME in there, 2/3 cup for me for 800 milliliters. So just going to fill this up to 800, a little over because I will lose some to evaporation. It's still going to be fairly close, as you can see there. Once I add the yeast, and then I'll only have a little bit of headspace there for fermentation. So I'm just going to slosh it around a little. You can stick something down in there and stir it around if you want. Some people mix it in a pan first, boil it, then pour it in here. I just do it in here. And just put it on the stove. You want to bring it to a boil. And we'll let that come to a boil. And then as soon as I turn the heat off, I'll go ahead and stick a piece of aluminum foil over the top. Move that off to the side. And just let it set for an hour or so, and then I'll stick it in a cold water bath, swirl it around some more, get it down to temp, and pour that off, and then pour it in there, and then I'll put my my rubber stopper with my airlock on there and let it ferment right on the counter here. And when it's done fermenting, it'll settle out, and I will pour off the excess. It'll look similar to this, except a little darker. I will pour off the excess and be left with the yeast. Right? And I'll throw in my stir bar and stick it on the stir plate and let it stir up before I use it. Yeah, and remember on this, we're not trying to boil it for an hour and remove all this DMS, and there's no need for that. We're only going to bring it to a boil to sterilize it, basically. So. And before it gets to a boil ever so often, I just pick it up and give it a swirl and slosh in case any of that DME settled out to the bottom. Pretty much before it gets too hot to handle. So that's it. Close. Woo-wee. Yeah, that got away from me. I wasn't paying attention. I was recording in one hand and I was drinking my coffee in the other, and whew, it went right up on me. Anyway, no mess. How about that? So that's it. Alright, my starter is cooled to room temperature. My yeast has come back to room temperature. Again, I don't have a fancy funnel. don't mind pouring off a little bit of the yeast. Okay. And that's it. I mean, I leave quite a bit behind. I just try to grab the middle. And of course, this has to be stirred up. Stir bar is already in there. I forgot to mention that. I boiled that with the starter. Okay, this is a regular. You have to get the stopper for these, and of course this is Star Sand. That's pretty much it. And that'll ferment. Hopefully it starts up in a couple hours. Another project I'm working on that I talked about once before, adding an additional switch to my panel. The reason for this switch is to be able to select two different temperature probes. One direction would be the HLT and the other direction would be what's going into the mash tun. Talked briefly on the reasons for that, and basically it just gives you a little more control over your temperature that's going into your mash. So on the back side of the panel, where is the switch? That's kind of hard to see now, but the switch is the center of that switch. The two wires on the center go to the PID controller. So the PID controller is always going to have a sensor on it, whether it's one with the HLT or that's the recirculating one. So I just got to tidy these wires up, put the cover back on. But on the outside where it comes out of the case, I have one that is female, the other that is male, so I can't ever get the two mixed up out there because when you plug it all back together, it's only going to go one way. So I added this second temperature probe that is switchable here. That way the PID can sense one or the other. And I tried it today, and it really doesn't work that well. I'm a little disappointed, and I'm going to do some experiments with it, but I think it's because this one is 10 degrees different than the other one that's in the that I have hooked up to the pot. There's a 10-degree shift. I was hoping it would only be like 1 or 2 degrees from this one, but it's like 10, and that's pretty hard to manage when you switch back and forth. So I may have to play around with it. I may end up adjusting the temperature sensor for here for an offset that matches this one, and just remember that when I set my initial temperature to be 10 degrees lower than what I need to be. I don't know yet. I'm going to play around with it with just water one day and see where I end up. That's disappointing that they were that far off. I'm sure if I ordered another one, it's hit or miss. I may get one that's 10 degrees wrong the other direction, I had a feeling that might happen. I was just hoping they were a little closer than that. So, I'll let you know how that turns out when I do some experiments and how I decide to use it. If using it at all is beneficial. It may not be. Save you guys some money and time, although it wasn't that much to do. Hey everybody, happy Homebrew Wednesday. Brewing the Evil Twin today. The grains are crushed. We're waiting for the system to come up to temp. It's goddamn probably 70 degrees already, maybe even more, 75.
on a Wednesday. We'll be in the shade here in a bit, and the sun comes around. I figured I'd start out in the sun because of it. It's already hot. But bear in mind, it's March 21st in Maine, so it's pretty cool. Sorry you guys up in the Northwest and all your rain and cold ass weather. Sucks to be you.
This is the Evil Twin grain bill, all crushed up. Smells good. And we're moving over our infusion water right now. Going for 20 quarts. It is a little after 10 on a Wednesday, and here in Maine, it's got to be at least 70 already. My son Craig.
Hello.
We're brewing today together. He wants to see the process, so here we go. Seeing what the ingredients were, because I drank plenty of beer, but I never made any, And so when I first started making the beer, I noticed that, when the wort was boiling, or when I was collecting my first wort, like here, or even back when I was doing extract from a can,
Yeah.
I could smell the malts and stuff, and I was like, oh, okay, so now I'm picking up that. Now I remember that aroma from the beer that I was drinking before. Yeah. And then when I'd add the hops, I go, oh yeah, So it was kind of an education. My first beer making, because I could pick up all the smells individually that went into your beer.
Right.
But when you drink the beer, it's a melody.
Right. But as you were making it, you recall all the smells.
Yeah, I'm like, oh yeah, because then you could start separating the tastes in the beer, because you're getting it in the
it kind of makes
in the
it
process.
Easier for you to make something that you actually want to drink. If you think about what you didn't like about the last beer you had.
Yeah, and that's the thing about brewing, is that you brew to how your tastes are, really.